Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Twilight Zone review. Today it is Season 3, Episode 4, The Passersby, written by Rod Serling and starring Joanne Linville as Lavinia and James Gregory as the Sergeant. This episode, to me, I have mixed feelings about it. It's very atmospheric, it does a great job at that, and it has a really good score. Unfortunately, the twist ending is too obvious, comes way too soon, and the episode does feel a little overdramatic at times, although I do think it has good intentions. So I'll get into the episode now. We start on a road with a whole bunch of, it looks like war veterans or soldiers, and one soldier stops walking down the road and talks to a woman and asks if he can stay there for a while. He plays his guitar, and we learn the woman, whose name is Lavinia, that her husband was apparently killed in the war. At this point, she recollects basically how the war went wrong. Everybody thought it would be a great success for their side, which is the South, I believe, and that it didn't. And then basically we just, keep seeing the soldiers going down this road. At this point, Lavinia, after a little bit more chatting, sees somebody that she knew before he went off to war, and she goes up to him and hugs him, but he ignores her and says he needs to stay on his path down the road. At this point, it's already pretty obvious what's going on here and where these men are marching to, but the episode kind of plays it off like we don't really know what's going on. So the sergeant keeps talking. We get some more characterization, which is fine. He talks about his father, I think. He starts singing again, and Lavinia talks more about her husband. And the sergeant tells her she should leave, get out of there. There's nothing left for her there, but you can tell she's really wants to stay where she is and just keep recollecting how things used to be. So she then, this part's interesting. She questions what happened to the man who she thinks kills her husband, and she says if someone from that side of the war comes, she's going to take them out, and because it's her duty. The sergeant says he doesn't want to hear about that. He's tired of seeing people from both sides that are tragic victims of the war. So you can understand where they're both coming from. I like that part of the episode. Then we get a shadowy figure of a man, but we don't see who he is yet. And the sergeant recognizes him and sees it's someone who helped him. But he's someone from the other side of the conflict, so Lavinia pulls out a gun and tries to shoot him. At first the sergeant stops her, but then she does actually shoot him, and it has no effect. And then we see his face, and we can tell that he is clearly passed on to the other side. So now, if it wasn't clear already, it's very clear that these men are already passed away, and that they're just marching down this road for that reason. So at this point, it seems like the sergeant is starting to figure out what's going on, if he didn't already know, but Lavinia has no clue. So the next day, the sergeant says he has to leave, that he now understands the road. He was going to explain it to Lavinia, but he really can't. She wants him to stay there. Obviously she's lonely after what's happened. She still doesn't get it. How, I'm not really sure. That's where the implausibility of this episode comes in my opinion. So Lavinia's husband returns. The sergeant leaves. He finally kind of explains things to her. She realizes now that they are gone. Her husband keeps marching down the road. She still doesn't want to accept this at this point. Why, I have no clue. This really doesn't make sense to me. And then we get something really bizarre. Abraham Lincoln comes. He briefly talks to her and says he was basically the end of the war. He was the last casualty of the war. I guess it makes sense narratively, but I could have done without seeing a literal Abraham Lincoln. I think we get the point of what's going on. I don't think we needed that. That's a little over the top. And then Lavinia kind of runs after him down the road, and I never realized this watching the episode before. I'm not sure if she still accepts this or not. I mean, she doesn't look too calm or at peace running down that road, so that's a disturbing thought, and I don't know how I feel about that ending. It's interesting. It makes you think, so I guess I'm okay with it, but that's kind of odd. I always kind of remembered her accepting it at the end, but I'm not so sure that rewatching these episodes sometimes gives you a different perspective. Some other things of note. I think Joanne Linville's performance, I would have preferred it to be a little more subtle. It's a little bit melodramatic and over the top for me. I know this was sometimes the style back then, and she was probably directed this way, but I don't think it necessarily holds up that well today. It comes across as a little overbearing when it's supposed to be sympathetic. I mean, it's not terrible. I just would have preferred something more subtle. The rest of the acting is fine. The mood of the episode really works well. Unfortunately, it's just too obvious and too melodramatic. I mean, 10 minutes into the episode, we pretty much know what's happening, and it really drains the episode in a lot of ways. It just becomes less interesting. So I'm kind of in between on this episode. There's things I like, things I don't like. I do think the intention was good, but it's a little much at times. But it's a watchable episode, so I give The Passersby a 2.5 out of 5. So 2.5 out of 5 for this episode. You can check it out if you want. Thanks for watching.